really dislike Jake Paul. Now, I don't dislike him. I understand him. I want to make something clear. I would still kick the living fuck.
Andrew Tate completely humiliated Jake Paul on live TV in the most embarrassing way imaginable. Honestly, this isn't surprising. Jake has a knack for sinking below even the lowest expectations. First, he backed out of Andrew Tate's $3 million fight challenge. Then, he stooped to dragging Mike Tyson into a staged match, knowing full well Tyson wasn't in his prime. It was a shameless attempt to exploit a boxing legend for clout and a payday, cementing Jake's reputation for attention-seeking antics.
Himself to become the biggest clown on the internet, and now he's famous, right? Because he's an idiot, but he has a bunch of money, so he gets to...
Now Jake Paul is trying to provoke Andrew Tate into a fight, knowing he has no intention of stepping into the ring himself. Jake's strategy is clear. Bait Tate, count on him rejecting the offer, and twist the narrative to boost his ego. But Andrew Tate isn't taking the bait. Instead, he dismantled Jake's facade on live TV, exposing every bit of his deception and leaving him humiliated for all to see.
To them, so you can say, well, I lost to Conor McGregor. Why don't you lose to an old man who's retired? I live in the real world, Jake. There's a whole bunch of fighters out here who live in the real world. Men who are dangerous.
Andrew Tate flipped the script, calling Jake Paul's bluff by accepting the fight challenge. And Jake's response? He completely disappeared, ghosting everyone and proving he was never serious to begin with.
But I would whoop his ass. But he wouldn't take a fight against me, because when he loses, I'm not nearly on his level of fame, right? So like, he lost to who? Whereas if he loses to Conor McGregor, it's no big deal. Well, he lost to Conor McGregor, who cares, right? That's what it's about.
Jake Paul's entire ploy hinged on Andrew Tate refusing his challenge, allowing Jake to spin a tale of being the fearless warrior no one dares to face. But with Andrew accepting the fight, Jake's plan backfired spectacularly. Now panicked and backed into a corner, Jake has gone completely silent. The so-called fearless fighter has been exposed yet again as all talk and no action, leaving his bravado in shambles.
Some washed-up UFC fighter. I'm not smaller than him. I would beat the living shit out of him. And if he wants to fight, I'll fight him any day of the week, and I'll fucking wreck him.
Andrew Tate didn't just challenge Jake Paul to a fight. He delivered a reality check so harsh it should have come with a warning. Tate flat out called Jake's career a joke, accusing him of turning boxing into a TikTok-friendly circus. It's hard to argue when Jake's idea of competition includes dragging a 58-year-old Mike Tyson into his antics. Tyson, the heavyweight legend and boxing icon, was reduced to a content gimmick just so Jake could play the tough guy. Tate summed it up perfectly. It wasn't boxing, it was elder abuse. Jake didn't respect Tyson as a revered figure who revolutionized the sport. He saw him as a shortcut, an easy way to grab headlines without taking real risks. The worst part, Jake genuinely believed people wouldn't see through his shameless exploitation. Tate exposed it all, leaving Jake's facade in ruins.
I do understand what he's doing. I understand that he is very, very smart, even with his marketing angle. I'm just a YouTuber. You're not just a YouTuber. You're a full-grown man with the best coaches in the world who's dedicated his life to learning how to box for years. You know how to box. You're not a complete amateur. You know how to box very well. 3, 4, 5 years of training combat sports. You can box. The guy's not a jack.
Jake Paul's fight history is his most laughable masterpiece. A highlight reel of low-risk, high-reward stunts designed to fool casual fans into thinking he's the next big thing. It's like expecting fireworks but finding sparklers. He's faced retired MMA fighters who weren't even strikers, like Ben Askren, a wrestler with the speed of a snail, and Tyron Woodley, a shadow of his former self. Then there's Nate Robinson, a basketball player who looked like he'd never thrown a punch in his life. Andrew Tate tore through Jake's carefully crafted facade like wet paper, exposing the reality behind the hype. Jake, Tate said, if you trained half as much as you cherry-pick opponents, maybe you'd actually earn some respect. The brutal truth left Jake's credibility in tatters.
Not just a YouTuber. He is a young man training with Canelo and Ryan Garcia.
When I made the video, I really disliked Jake Paul. Now, I don't dislike him.
Then there's the $3 million challenge, a real, no-nonsense offer with a winner-takes-all stipulation. It wasn't a gimmick or a stage spectacle. It was Tate's way of exposing Jake Paul for what he truly is. And Jake's response. He ran, not walked, not jogged, straight for the exit. Jake Paul thrives in controlled environments where his fights are carefully choreographed to protect his ego and preserve his narrative. He's built a career on playing it safe while pretending he's risking everything. But a fight with Andrew Tate? That's unscripted, a gamble he can't afford to take. It threatens to destroy his carefully curated image and blow up the brand he's worked so hard to shield. Tate's challenge revealed the truth Jake couldn't face.
$1 million. You put three, I put three. Winner takes all. You know my name, Andrew Tate. I will fight you any day, anytime. Let's fucking go. If I were to fight Jake Paul, I would take it completely seriously as a real fight, and I'd whoop his ass. I'd beat him. Jake, everyone thinks he's just...
Jake Paul's rejection of Andrew Tate's $3 million challenge wasn't just a strategic dodge. It was an outright confession. A confession that all his bravado and trash talk are just that, talk. Jake, the self-proclaimed disruptor and game changer, went radio silent when confronted with a genuine threat. His loss to Tommy Fury was already the beginning of his downfall, but fighting Tate would have been the final nail in the coffin, and Jake knew it. Even without stepping into the ring, Andrew Tate's takedown of Jake was devastating. It wasn't just a roast. It was a public dismantling, a masterclass in exposing a fraud. Tate reminded the world what boxing is truly about: respect, skill, and authenticity. Jake? He's a loudmouth riding the wave of social media algorithms, building a career more on TikTok likes than boxing skill. Tate didn't mince words. His verbal takedowns were precise, like a surgeon wielding a scalpel. He accused Jake of being a kid playing dress up in a sport he doesn't respect, someone whose legacy is built not on fights but on TikTok captions. The line was so savage, Jake probably needed an ice pack for his ego. This wasn't just trash talk, it was psychological destruction. Tate's relentless verbal uppercuts shattered Jake's paper-thin self-image in real time, exposing the illusion of his larger-than-life confidence. Social media erupted. Memes and jokes hit harder than any punch Jake has ever thrown. Platforms like Twitter and Instagram were flooded with hashtags like #JakePaulExposed and #TateIsJake, as fans gleefully roasted Jake for dodging Tate's winner-takes-all challenge. The irony was impossible to miss. Jake, the so-called fearless fighter, ran faster than his hype train. His carefully crafted persona as a disruptor in the boxing world suddenly looked as fragile as one of his post-fight celebrations. The backlash wasn't just online noise, it was brutal. Fans, haters, and casual observers joined the pile-on. Even Jake's most loyal followers began questioning their allegiance. Memes labeled him a fraud, a runner, and most damningly, a coward. Jake, who supposedly earned over $40 million from his boxing career, found himself in a position that no amount of money could fix. Andrew Tate nailed it when he said, "Jake, even your fans know you cherry-pick fights to protect your brand." The worst part, he was absolutely right. Jake's avoidance of Tate wasn't just a strategic move, it was a neon sign screaming fear. Meanwhile, Andrew Tate came out of this unscathed, his reputation elevated. He didn't need to step into the ring to expose Jake. By simply issuing the challenge and watching Jake fumble, Tate cemented his dominance. Fans now view him as the real deal, a fighter who doesn't rely on gimmicks or hand-picked opponents to prove his worth. Tate's calculated approach was a masterstroke. He walked away from the entire situation without breaking a sweat, positioning himself as a beacon of authenticity in a sport increasingly played by influencers masquerading as athletes. The contrast between the two couldn't be starker. Jake Paul's brand took a major hit, while Andrew Tate's stature only grew, reminding everyone what it truly means to be a fighter. This wasn't just a victory for Tate. It was a defining moment that exposed the circus Jake has built his career on. In the end, Tate didn't just win the psychological battle. He redefined the rules of the game, leaving Jake Paul's carefully curated persona in tatters.
Again, you, Tristan, who comes out alive?
You know what? I'm trying so hard to not start internet beefs. I'm really trying not to.
You could say Jake and Logan, man.
Bro,
Don't worry about it.
No, I can't lie. Bro, I'm going through life. I'm trying to live peaceful now. I've got Fed agents in my house, Matrix.
For Jake Paul, this was a PR catastrophe. His entire brand rests on the idea that he's fearless and willing to fight anyone. But rejecting Andrew Tate's challenge blew a massive hole in that narrative. This wasn't just about dodging one fight. It was about what that dodge represented. A fight with Tate wasn't just a risky move. It was a direct threat to the carefully crafted illusion Jake has spent years building. His loss to Tommy Fury had already exposed cracks in his armor, and stepping into the ring with Tate could have been the final blow. Jake knew it, and his retreat was as telling as it was damaging. Andrew Tate delivered a mic drop moment that was as brutal as it was accurate. "Jake," he said, "you don't need boxing gloves. You need to stay on YouTube, where losing isn't as painful." The line wasn't just cutting. It was surgical, dismantling Jake's image with precision. Jake's rejection of the fight wasn't just about avoiding physical confrontation. It was an unspoken confession. Deep down, Jake knows he's out of this league. Tate didn't need the fight. His legacy is already secure. But Jake? He needed this fight to keep his illusion alive. Now that illusion is shattered, the fallout from this debacle may be irreparable. Jake's road to redemption isn't just uphill. It's practically vertical. It's no longer enough to hype his next fight. He'll have to convince a skeptical audience that he's more than just a YouTuber with boxing gloves, a near impossible task when even his most loyal fans are starting to question his credibility.